Encircled by the waters of two branches of the Ile River, and attached to the rest of the city by 20 bridges, the Grande Ile, the Big Island, is Strasbourg's historic center. It was the site of the Roman castrum of Argentorit, whose principal axes were maintained in the city's later development. The Grande Ile possesses a remarkable monumental ensemble within a small area of land. Rising above the town's high-pitched roofs, with their multi-storied dormer windows, several churches stand out on the skyline. The cathedral and the other churches of the Grande Ile fit coherently into an old quarter that exemplifies medieval cities and reflects the evolution of Strasbourg from the 15th to the 18th century. The cathedral and its square beautifully illustrate this historic and urban coherence. The Cathedral of Strasbourg represents the eastward vector of Gothic architecture. The considerable influence that this model exerted on the statuary arts in the Germanic countries can be divided into three successive phases: the influence of the Pillar of the Last Judgment, of the rood screen, and of the doors of the facade. The cathedral's various portals depict the example of saints' lives for the faithful who pass through them. The Virgin occupies a privileged place. The ensemble corresponds to the different mirrors of Gothic Christianity: natural, moral, and historical science. Major Gothic sculpture was born and evolved to the rhythm of the cathedrals, of which it was the external embellishment. Sculpture covered the cathedral facades, being intimately wedded to their severe architecture and helping to pattern their division into stories. The statues located above the triple portal of the Gothic facade date from the 13th to the 15th century and depict the prophets, the wise and mad virgins, and the virtues and vices. With its tall single spire pointing upwards like an admonishing finger, the cathedral dominates the landscape over much of Alsace. For centuries, Strasbourg Cathedral was thought to be the tallest building because of the height of its tower. Soaring to 142 meters, the intricate filigree spire in pink sandstone is in itself a technical feat, unequaled until the 19th century. In the Gothic period, the cathedral dominated the town not only with its lofty silhouette, but also through its religious, economic, and political influence. The cathedral is a monument which largely defines what is referred to as the Gothic style. Gothic architecture originated in the Ile-de-France and flourished first in northern France, spreading to the neighboring lands during the second half of the 12th century and the two following centuries. The first stone of the cathedral was laid in 1015, and the spire was completed in 1439. Strasbourg Cathedral has a Gothic triple nave, although the choir and transept have retained some Romanesque features from the earlier church. The cathedral contains many treasures. A Renaissance masterpiece, the astronomical clock is a result of the combined work of artists, mathematicians, and technicians. The current mechanism dates from 1842. The main attraction of the clock is its animated figures, which come out to delight the public every day at noon. The eye is drawn to a group sculpted in a very theatrical pose, a Mount of Olives scene from 1498, which once stood in the graveyard of the Church of St. Thomas. The decorations and furniture of the cathedral are worthy of the beauty of the structure. Embroideries and laces were made for it. Cloths of gold brocade and ornamented with precious stone were hung upon it. The current organ was built in 1981 by Alfred Kern of Strasbourg. Material from earlier organs, including 317 pipes from the 1716 Andreas Silbermann organ, was used in its construction. The stained glass windows, dating from the 13th and 14th centuries, are amongst the oldest in Christianity. Their images recount stories from both the Old and New Testaments. The 15-meter rose window in the western facade preserves the original design, though its glass dates from the 19th century. The pulpit, the work of Hans Hammer from 1485, is worthy of closer examination. Apart from being highly detailed and displaying an extraordinary level of craftsmanship, it is adorned with a small sleeping puppy, carved into its base. In each stage of its construction, from the Pillar of the Last Judgment of 1230 to the completion of the northern spire, the Gothic Cathedral of Strasbourg is a unique artistic achievement. The cathedral square is lined by buildings with characteristic steep-pitched roofs and brightly painted facades. At the corner of the Place de la Cathédrale and Rue Mercière is the half-timbered Pharmacie du Cerf. Its stone ground floor, whose arcades are decorated with branches and snakes, dates from 1268. On the north side of the Place de la Cathédrale in Strasbourg is the Maison Cammarzel, the finest old burgher's house in the city, and the largest and most ornately decorated of Strasbourg half-timbered houses. Its facade contains 75 windows, whose sculpted frames depict biblical and mythological figures, as well as the signs of the zodiac. Built in 1427 but twice transformed in 1467 and 1589, the building as it is now historically belongs to the German Renaissance, though it is stylistically still attached to the Rhineland black and white timber-framed style of civil architecture. Situated close by the cathedral, the Musée de l'Œuvre Notre-Dame offers the visitor a tour of discovery through 7 centuries of art in Strasbourg and the Upper Rhine region. Since 1931, the museum has been housed in a charming series of buildings dating from the 14th and 16th centuries. Petite France, the neighborhood on the waters, is the most picturesque area of Old Strasbourg. With its many canals, cascades, and waterwheels, Petite France is full of charm and is one of Strasbourg's most popular neighborhoods for tourists to take a stroll. Fishermen, millers, and tanners once lived and worked in this part of town, where the streets were built level with the waterways. Its streets, whose names reflect the Guild movement, are crowded with souvenir shops, restaurants, and hotels. The magnificent half-timbered houses of Petite France date from the 16th and 17th centuries. Their sloping roofs open out onto lofts where hides were once dried. The tight network of streets with artisan shops is the image of medieval and Renaissance Christian society. It is an outstanding example of an urban ensemble, characteristic of Central Europe, and constitutes a unique collection of domestic architecture in the Rhine Valley of the 15th and 16th centuries. Continuing on from the Petite France area, we come to the covered bridges, which have kept their name despite the fact that they lost their roofs back in the 18th century. They are overlooked by 4 towers dating from the 14th century. Walking through the Petite France with its narrow cobblestone streets and Tudor architecture, it is easy to imagine oneself back in medieval times. Quiet by day, it is lively at night, with tourists and locals alike out enjoying its many sidewalk cafes and restaurants. Built beginning in 1031 on the site of a Merovingian chapel, the Gothic church Saint-Pierre-le-Jeune was consecrated in 1053 by the Alsatian Pope Leo IX. The elongated rectangle of Place Broglie was laid out in 1742 on the site of the old horse market. The Municipal Theatre stands at one end of Place Broglie. It was built in 1820 in the neoclassical style, with a facade adorned with a colossal peristyle with Ionic columns. It is topped by the Six Muses. The Château de Rohan, an elegant 18th century palace, was built for Cardinal Armand de Rohan-Soubise, one of several members of his family to serve as Prince Bishop of Strasbourg. With the classic noble height of its facade and its sumptuous interior furnishings, this episcopal palace is one of the most beautiful creations of French 18th century architecture. Built, decorated, and furnished in the span of 10 years' time, the dwelling is graced with an exceptional stylistic unity. Designed by the royal architect Robert de Cotte, it is particularly lovely when seen from the banks of the Yale River. Another important square is Place Kléber. The largest square at the center of Strasbourg is in the heart of the city's commercial area. It was named after General Jean-Baptiste Kléber, born in Strasbourg in 1753. In the square is a statue of Kléber, under which is a vault containing his remains. The socle recalls two of his victories, one at Altenkirchen and the other at Heliopolis. Of humble birth, Kléber served in the French Revolutionary Wars and earned his fame as a general in the Napoleonic Wars. Located in the old part of the city, Strasbourg's Church of St. Thomas is now a Protestant church. The single tower above the narthex and the rose-colored stone are characteristic of other Alsatian churches of the period. The site on which the current church stands was used as a place of worship under the patronage of Thomas the Apostle, as early as the 6th century. In the 9th century, Bishop Adelocus established a magnificent church with adjoining school, though both burned down in 1007 and then again in 1144. In 1196, construction began on the facade of a new, fortress-like building with an imposing steeple, built in the Romanesque style. Interrupted several times, a building work was completed in 1521 in the late Gothic style. Its choir is home to the impressive mausoleum of the Maréchal de Saxe, a masterpiece of 18th century Baroque funerary art. Created in 1777, it is the work of Jean-Baptiste Pigalle. The church is also known for its organs. The main organ is the work of Johann Andreas Silbermann from the 18th century. Strasbourg is one of Europe's most attractive cities. Thanks to the richness and sheer density of its heritage sites, the entire town center was listed as a UNESCO World Heritage Site in 1988.